What is Social Security disability? What kind of benefits are people with disabilities and different abilities entitled to?
And how can people work jobs while receiving SSD?
This is Enable the Disability Podcast, where we'll share stories, experiences, support, resources, and more for people with disabilities and different abilities. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. My name is Jeff Herbert.
And my name is Kurt Hauer. We're talking with Michael Leiner of Leiner Legal, a law firm specializing in Social Security disability. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Michael, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences. I know you mentioned before that you have epilepsy and motor tic syndrome.
Yeah, so my name is Michael Leiner. I am, as you introduced me, a disability attorney. You know, we're based here. My law firm, Leiner Legal, is based in Cleveland, Ohio, but we help people in all 50 states, and we have clients in all 50 states. So we have one of the larger disability practices in the country. Just to kind of explain how I got to where I am, a lot of my own background and history plays a role in it. Like you mentioned, when I had childhood epilepsy, which thankfully I grew out of. So I've been seizure free since I was 12 years old, but that's just one of the health issues that I have had to navigate, as I continue to have motor tic syndrome and cluster headaches, which thankfully I'm not in a cluster period right now. The experiences that I had as a child, the experiences that I have today certainly inform the work that I do, more from just an ability to understand my clients in a way that they might not normally feel. So, there's this impression that I think a lot of people have of working with a lawyer or a law firm where, you're going to hire somebody who's wearing a suit and their job is to be your voice or your advocate, but they don't really get what you're going through. And I definitely think that it creates a unique angle to, our service offerings here even though I'm not the only person here anymore, we have 80, 85 people in my office, but everything is an extension of me. And most of the people who work here also either have a family member who is receiving disability benefits or have, impairments themselves. And it just allows us to be that much closer to our clients. But my health certainly has played a big role in why I do what I do and what keeps me motivated to keep doing it.
So how do social disability benefits work, and who's eligible for them?
Sure. So the Social Security Administration offers a couple different types of disability benefits. I'll speak about this at a very bird's eye, level. If you guys have more specific questions, I can answer them. But there's two basic types of benefits that Social Security offers. One is called Social Security Disability, which is essentially disability benefits based on your work history. When people are working and paying into Social Security, you'll notice that there's taxes that are coming out. If you look at the bottom of your W-2s, it says FICA in a couple different places. And some of your FICA taxes go to pay for disability insurance in case you were to become unable to work. So the first type of benefit is called Social Security Disability. The other benefit that Social Security offers is called Supplemental Security Income, which is not based on your work history at all. And in fact, you don't ever need to have worked to receive SSI benefits. Instead, it's based on being unable to work and having very few resources available to you, a demonstration of financial need. It's essentially a federal poverty benefit for people who are disabled. But regardless of which type of benefit somebody is applying for, whether it's SSD or SSI benefits, what you have to prove is the same, which is essentially that you have impairments, physical or mental, which are going to keep you from being able to work full time for a period of not less than 1 year, or which is expected to result in death. So it's a challenging thing to prove. It really is. And a lot of times, where my role comes into this is, people believe that they can't work, but Social Security, the government creates a lot of roadblocks to actually accessing these benefits. And my job is to eliminate those barriers to help people be successful.
So are there limits or rules? I mean, you mentioned full-time. Like, are there limits about how much you could work and still receive Social Security benefits? Or are there restrictions on what you can and can't do while receiving them?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you asked that question, Jeff. So you can work while applying for and receiving disability benefits. It's not about a number of hours. There's a lot of misconceptions about that. It's not about a type of work that you can or can't do. It's really about an amount of money that you can earn. It's called SGA, Substantial Gainful Activity. It's an amount that changes every year. It goes up with the cost of living adjustment that Social Security offers. And in 2025, that amount of money that's the most that you can work and still be eligible for disability benefits is $1,620 per month gross. It doesn't matter if you earn that in working 2 hours per week or you earn that in working 30 hours per week. It's strictly about an amount of money that you can work. But it's important that people understand that just because you're applying for or receiving disability benefits doesn't mean you can't work at all, because I think that especially for somebody who is sick or dealing with impairments, if you can work some, it actually can be palliative. It can be something that is positive, gives purpose, gives meaning, keeps you going every day, gives you a reason to get up, get out of the house, if you can. But what they're considering for disability is whether you can work full time. So hopefully that helps.
Okay. So how do people apply for SSI benefits?
Another great question. So there's many different ways that you can apply for disability benefits. Social Security prefers people to apply online. It saves resources. When people are inputting their own information on the application, they're going to ask you, what your health issues are. They want to know who your doctors are, what medications you're taking, any recent testing that's been done. And they want to know about jobs that you've had in the last 5 years. And it's just much easier for them to, retrieve that information, keep it together, get it where it's supposed to go if that information is submitted online. SSA.gov /disability. However, you can still go into a Social Security office and apply. That's something that a lot of people are not understanding now, because Social Security has changed the types of appointments that they will offer in the office, but you still can apply for disability benefits in a Social Security office. You can also do it on the phone. Social Security offers phone interviews. So if you're more comfortable, if you're not, good with going into the office, if you don't feel like you're computer savvy enough to give them the information that they want on the internet, you can do a disability application by being interviewed by somebody who works at Social Security. You just have to request it.
Okay, so a follow-up question there. So I'm still working, go to the doctor's office. The doctor says, hey, Kurt, I really think you ought to consider about going on disability. So I'm still working. Can I still apply?
In order for Social Security to consider your application, you have to be earning below that SGA amount, below 1620. So Social Security won't put someone who is currently working onto disability. And it kind of makes sense because, they approve people who have a demonstrated need of the benefits. If you're able to continue working full time, their position is that you should, even if your doctor says it's not good for your health. It's once you have stopped working, or at least dropped your earnings below that SGA amount, that they will process your application. They won't even look at your medical records if you report that you're earning above that $1620 per month. Social Security has something that's called the 5-step sequential evaluation. It's questions that get asked in order, 5 questions, and it's how they evaluate every case. Question number 1 is the person working at a level of SGA? If the answer is yes, then the analysis ends. You're not disabled. Yeah.
Yeah, we were at a job fair yesterday, and there was a lot of interest in the topic of SSI benefits. And some people are working, if I get a job, how does that affect my benefits? But then there was also somebody questioned me about the waiting period. And why is there a waiting period, and why is it so long? So could you tell us a little bit about that?
I want to ask a clarification question before I answer, because there's a couple waiting periods that they could be asking about. So um, the typical path of how long it takes somebody to get approved for disability benefits, it's about 2 years, depending on where in the country you are. In some parts of the country, it's 3 or 4 years. Um, in Ohio, where I live, we have one of the better states for processing disability claims. A lot of people can go from application all the way to a disability hearing, which means they've been denied a couple times and had reviews in 14, 16 months, which is lightning quick, believe it or not. There's another waiting period that they could be talking about, though, and I want to make sure that that's not what question is about. It's called the 5-month waiting period. And you are not eligible to receive a disability check until you've been disabled for 5 full months. So say it's October of 2025, somebody's in a tragic car accident, can't go back to work. They can't have a family member or go in and apply for Social Security tomorrow and actually start receiving a check, no matter if they're approved fast, right away. October doesn't count because it's not a full month. November, December, January, February, March, April of 2026 is the first time that somebody could actually collect an SSD check. So there's a couple different waiting periods that person could have been referring to. Do you think it's the wait time for
Yes,
being approved?
I think the latter, and that could lead into another question: is how a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. How do your clients survive during that wait period?
So you're actually hitting on something that's really unique to my office, and I don't come on here to sell services at all. But we are, as far as I've ever heard, the only law firm in America that actually has created a solution for this problem, or our own solution. Because I will tell you, for the first decade of my career, the answer that I gave clients, which is the answer that everybody else in my field gives clients when they would ask, how are you supposed to survive 2 years, 4 years without income? The answer that I would kind of sheepishly look at people and give them is, I really hope you have a generous uncle, or a supportive spouse, or a couch that you can sleep on. And truly, by the time we got to hearing with people, especially in some of those states where the process took a lot longer, people who didn't start off as homeless were homeless. How do you support yourself for that long? So back in 2020, I created something that's called our Client Concierge Program. And so in our office, there's a team that does not work on our clients' disability cases. That's not their role at all. What they do is they work with our clients on restoring everything else that's around them while they're waiting for this long process. So there's no charge for this. We don't get paid for this, but we help our clients maintain their Medicaid, maintain food stamps, homeless outreach, foreclosure assistance, whatever they're going through. We try and patch those things, or work with them to patch those things up in their lives, because there are a lot of programs that people just don't realize exist, because we know that it's a long wait. And really, even though we don't get paid for it, it does help us. And the reason is because when somebody is homeless, when somebody doesn't know where their next meal is going to come from, the things that it takes for them to be successful with their Social Security case, basically going to the doctor, telling them about their medical problems, becomes like the 6th most important thing in their life. And then it becomes really hard for me to win their case, even though they might be the most limited person that I'm trying to help. So what our Client Concierge Program does, by helping them address all of life's challenges when they come up during this long wait time, it keeps their treatment a priority, because they hopefully know where their next meal is going to come from. They know that they have a roof over their head. And so it's a win-win for everybody involved, but it's such a unique service. There's a lot of law firms that have spoken to me about it, but they've never actually taken that next step. of implementing it, because it's hard, especially to do this nationally, but it's so valuable. And what it does, lawyers love going around saying, we care about our clients, that's why you should hire us. But what are they doing that shows that they care? I can demonstrate to you what we are doing. And it's in we have a wall of thank you notes of, people whose cases we lost, but we helped them get a house, and it's really rewarding beyond monetary. So I'm so grateful that we can do this.
That's really special. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate everything that you're sharing with us. You're answering a lot of questions that we, and I'm sure a lot of other people listening right now, have as well about, Social Security, disability benefits, and more. One of the things we're most proud of to do is to connect with the community and share information and resources like this. So we really appreciate it. This is Enable, the Disability Podcast. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to share different stories, because even when it feels like it, you're not alone. We're not defined solely by the things we can't do when there's so many things that we can do.
Yeah, we'd like to hear, Michael, a little bit more about you and your journey with epilepsy.
So the issue that I deal with every day is motor tic syndrome. And you may have, just because we're on video here, you may have noticed right now the tic that's really been bothering me for the last 2 years is in my neck. I can't control it. The medication that they give me isn't really effective. It doesn't affect my ability to do anything. It affects my ability to calm down at night. I sleep very little, which is probably not good for the rest of my health because it irritates me. But I'm able to drive, play sports, work out, do my normal routine. I mentioned that I have cluster headaches, and thankfully, my cluster periods last for a couple months, usually every 3 years. Knock on wood, I should be in a cluster period right now, and I'm not. But I've had them every 3 years during the same season without fail since 2013, I think it was. And so, when I am in a cluster period, when I'm actually having those headaches, I'm non-functional a lot of the time. That's when it really starts to interfere with, my activities at work, my activities at home, my responsibilities to my family and my friends. But day to day, I navigate the world with issues.
Very good. Well, one of the things you talked about when you were talking about your clients are, some of the challenges they might face. And I'm just curious, are there any similarities with clients and, things that I should look out for if I'm thinking about applying for disability?
So there is no one size fits all picture that I can tell you when it comes to my clients. We help people across the entire spectrum of health issues. There's this almost universal stereotype of disability lawyers. I've heard them say back when we used to go to court, now everything is on phone or Zoom like this, so we don't even really go to a Social Security court. But back when we used to, you would hear lawyers saying to each other, just more back pain and depression today. But that has not been my experience at all. Yeah, there is plenty of back pain and depression, but we help people with complex neurological issues, cardiac issues, yes, mental health issues, pulmonary issues, you name it. One thing that is, I think it's worth mentioning is that Social Security's rules for disability become more favorable as you get older. So it becomes a little bit easier to get disability benefits when you turn 50, and then even a little bit easier than that after you turn 55. Now, this is a perfect time for me to plug a concern, which is there are rumblings inside of the current administration that they plan on doing away with age as a factor in disability cases, and making it so everybody would just have to prove that there's no work at all doing anything that they can do, which fails to recognize that at 60 years old, it's a lot harder to transition to a type of work that you've never done before than it is when you're 32 years old. And that was the purpose of these rules called the grid rules, which make it, again, a little bit easier to get approved as you get age. So my pitch to the world that's hearing this is, and there's a lot of things that I'm telling people to stay in the ears of their congressmen and senators about at a federal level. Use your voice. The people who I represent, the people who listen to your podcast, the Enable the Disability podcast, are the most vulnerable people in our society. There's no question about it. And it is so easy for people who go to work every day, run trust funds, to say, let's move some of our resources away from this population to shore up issues elsewhere. Let's fund the military more. So we're not going to take care of our own, which is kind of my response. But when people use their voices and reach out to their politicians and say, you can't seriously be behind this, like changing rules for Social Security cripples communities. It cripples, housing, food, restaurants, you name it, because disability benefits go into our communities. And so it is needed support. So I really urge people to use your voice and tell your politicians, you don't be behind anything that takes away the benefits from people who really need it.
I really appreciate you sharing that message with us. And thank you for the time to answer all the questions that we had. I'm sure that people can get a million more questions answered through Lina Legal's website. But I just wanted to ask you if you have any closing thoughts you would like to share.
Yeah. And I've spoken about this a lot in a lot of different arenas, but I hate the word disability because I think it's such a misnomer. Disability means you lack ability. I don't lack ability. I'm better than most people at a lot of things. There's some things that I might be weaker at, okay? And I think that what we should be talking about are diff abilities, having different abilities. With my background, if you ask me to sit and concentrate and focus on something for 2 hours, no chance, not going to happen. I told you how school, early on primary school, was really challenging for me because all they reward is sitting and focusing. They don't reward deep thought, and that's why I was the best student in college and the worst student and everything leading up to college, right? It makes sense. But I don't have disabilities. I have different abilities. And I really think that people need to embrace that idea that I'm more creative than others. That's why I've been able to build this large, successful business. It's because I know what I'm not as good at, and I find other people who are good at it to do it for me, and I'll focus on my lane. I'll stay here. I'll stay in my middle. And anybody who thinks that they have a disability is thinking about it wrong. You just need to find what you're great at and lean into it. And that's my story. My story is I know what I stink at, I know what I'm great at, and I just live my life focusing on what I'm great at and letting everybody else around me do the rest.
Thank you again for joining us. This is Enable the Disability Podcast, but for today, we'll call it Enable the Different Ability Podcast.
Definitely.
We are at Enable Podcast on social media. Please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And please share this podcast with your family and friends so we can share stories about people with different abilities. And thank you all for joining us.